David's son Solomon is now king, and he's the wisest man who ever lived. God has given him great, great wisdom. But you know what? He has no self-control. And he thought that he could make peace in the land of Israel if he married that king's daughter and that king's daughter and this king's daughter. And if he married all their daughters, then they wouldn't fight with him. Well, that worked. There was peace in Israel during Solomon's reign. But that was against God's rules. He's married heathen women. And that's lack of self-control. And so it isn't long before Solomon has over 300 wives. And I can just imagine this happening. That one night at the table, the long, long dinner table, the wives are all sitting and talking with each other, and they're homesick and they're unhappy because he's got all these wives and he doesn't have time for all those women. And so that night, Solomon was walking down the hall of the women's palace because they had their own palace, and he hears one of the women in one of her rooms going, Now, I've told you boys that if a woman's crying, get out. That's dangerous. But Solomon knocked on the door and he said, "What's the matter in there?" And she said, "Oh, goodness." And she opened the door and Solomon came in. He said, "What's the matter? I can make it better. I'm the king." "Well," she said, "I'm homesick. I have nowhere to go and worship. And you have a place to go and worship, and I have an idol, but I don't have a garden to put my idol in, and I feel so lonely." And Solomon said, "Oh, that's not a big deal. I can fix that. But look, you've got to promise me that you'll never tell anybody. Scout's honor, you're going to never tell anybody." "Oh, I won't tell, I won't tell. I promise, I promise." Well, he lets her have a little piece of land up on a hill outside of Jerusalem, and there she can plant flowers and trees and stick her idol. Well, the next night at supper, she's got her place for her idol, and she's sitting there at the table, smiling sweetly, and the woman next to her says, "Why are you so happy?" Oh, no, nothing. It's nothing at all. Nothing." "Yes, it is something. I want to know why you're so happy." "Well, it's a secret." "Well, it better not be a secret from me." "Well, if I tell you, can you be sure and never tell anybody else?" "Of course." "Well, Solomon has allowed me to have a little piece of land up on the hill outside, and I've got a place for my idol, and I can go up there and worship, and I'm so happy I'm not homesick anymore." "Is that right? And you said you'd keep it a secret." "Oh, I will." And that night when Solomon walked down the hallway, the second woman was going. So he stopped and he asked her what was wrong, and she said, "I don't have anywhere to worship my idol, and my other friend has a place up on the hillside to worship her idol, and you didn't give me a place." Oh, he said, "Okay, okay, I'll give you a place to worship your idol, but don't tell anybody." "Oh, I'll keep it a secret, I promise." Well, it isn't long before all of these women have been crying and breaking their word and not keeping the secret, and that hill is covered with little gardens and silly-looking idols. But that's not the end of the story. These women decided that they were not just happy with the hill of scandal. That's what the people called it, the hill of scandal, with all of the idols on it. And one night Solomon is walking down the hall again, and hears one of them going, "Ooh." He stops and he says, "What's the matter with you now? You've got this place for your idol." And she said, "Yes, but I don't have anybody to go with me to worship. And when you go to the temple to worship, you have lots of people to go with you, and I have to go all by myself. It's so lonely." And Solomon says, "Well, the next time you get ready to go, I'll go with you. But don't tell anybody this time." "Okay, I won't, I won't, I won't." So that night at the dinner table, this one's all smiles, and this one says, "Well, what are you so happy about now?" "Oh, nothing, nothing. It's nothing." "Yes, it is. There's something." "Well, It's a secret. Well, you don't have to have secrets from me. Well, um, I, Solomon's been going with me to worship my idol, and I'm not going all by myself. Well, that night when he walked down the hall, the second woman began to ooh, and he stopped and found out what was wrong with her, and he said he'd go with her. Well, it wasn't long, because these women couldn't keep a secret like that, until Solomon, the king of Israel, is walking up that hill with one of his wives after another, and he's not worshiping their idol, but he's standing there while they do it. Now, how do you suppose God feels about that? He's angry. Of course he's angry. And so are the people. That's why they called it the Hill of Scandal. It's still there today, and there's nothing on it but trees, and they still call it the Hill of Scandal. Well, God said to Solomon, all right, Solomon, I made you the wisest man and one of the richest and the greatest kingdom in the world. And you've had no self-control. And you've married all those women, and you've let all those idols come in, and now you're going up on that hill with them. And I want you to know that your son, Rehoboam, will never be king over all of Israel. I'm going to split the country in half, and I'm going to give the bottom two, Judah and Benjamin, to your son Rehoboam because of David and because I loved him, your father. But I'm going to give the rest of those 10 tribes to another man. And it's all because you were a king who had no self-control. Boys and girls, I know that you get tired of being told to sit still, to listen, to do whatever you've been told to do. But that's self-control. Self-control means you can make yourself do what you know you're supposed to do. Now, self-control is more than just motions. But let's just play a game right quick and let's see if you've got self-control. I'm going to count to 3, and when I do, you must not move anything. Take a big breath, nothing but your eyelids. They blink automatically. You're not going to move your hands. You're not going to swing your feet. You're going to sit absolutely still with your hands in your lap until I say, okay. All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, get ready because you're not going to move. 3. Good. If you didn't move, then you have self-control at least where your body's concerned.